Hello, entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Laura L. Bernhard. Welcome back to the Marketing Bound podcast, where we help you leverage inbound marketing strategies to grow your business. I got to interview Richard Moore last year. He's a sales and LinkedIn coach and has over 37,000 connections on the platform. He also has the most popular LinkedIn course on Udemy. I'll link everything in the show notes. The original interview was over an hour long, so I cut it down to just include the LinkedIn tips. You'll notice that I was just learning about the platform, but the advice that Richard gives is all still relevant. And after the last couple of weeks of LinkedIn episodes, I thought it would be great to finish off the month with one more. So, in what you're about to hear, Richard provides tangible advice that will help you in your day-to-day on LinkedIn: who you should be connecting to, what you should be posting, the structure of a post, what metrics to pay attention to, and the importance of building a network. If you enjoy this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Marketing Bound podcast and share this episode. What do you think is the best form of media to put on LinkedIn? Because you mentioned articles, you mentioned posts, you mentioned, texts, posts. Like, what should we be doing now?
It's a good question, and I can't say live because you have to apply. But I think there's a number of. It depends what you're after. If you want to be an influencer and sell the eyeballs you get, well, then you can download any viral video off YouTube or Facebook and post it, and you'll crush it. And it's really irritating that that's the world a lot of people are inhabiting, and it's like you're this. You're a business process analyst or something, and you're doing this stuff just for followers. So try and avoid the route of trying to become an influencer unless that's genuinely your gig. It makes sense to post natively. It doesn't matter too much the medium as long as you are stimulating conversation. What really matters is the copy that is going to draw people in. So people are revering content too much, in the sense they put the content up and they think it's everything and they leave it and like, I'm not going viral, what's going on? And it's because it's 10% content, it's 90% distribution. And distribution in 2020 means having a strong network, and having a strong network is precisely the same tricks and techniques as having a strong friendship group in the offline world. The reason why when you moved into your flat, although you had the lockdown, probably if you hadn't got the lockdown, when you moved into a flat, all of your friends would have been rushing to help unpack, or at least be part of the moving in party. It's probably because they think you're a decent person, you hung out, you've been to parties together, you cooked them lunch when they were ill, and all the lovely things you probably do, Laura. But if you didn't do any of that, none of them would lift a finger, and so you get out what you put in. It's the same here. And, I don't have to go around to people's houses helping them move in, but checking in with a community of people that have some element of influence or who are have a strong network is really worthwhile. It's good to be connected well to people who are your peers, sure. But if you want to really grow, you need people to show up for you who have clout. And LinkedIn basically rewards early engagement of posts. So it doesn't matter too much if it's text only, that performs really well, or image or video. It doesn't matter if you're crap on video, so don't worry about it, do text. It doesn't matter too much. But the main thing is, if you get distribution early from bigger hitters, so people with several tens of thousands of followers who have an active network, then LinkedIn will say not only are people showing up for this post, but people who are who have an active network are showing up, we will distribute it further. And those are the relationships you want to be cultivating, because those kind of people of influence are, they go a long way. When you tag them legitimately in a meaningful way, they will validate that tag by showing up, and that further feeds the distribution. So the way I grew very quickly, and gaining something in the region, it's not massive, but it goes fast, at probably 1,000 followers a month now, is actually by step changing through having people of influence engage with my content, because I behind the scenes, I'm regularly messaging them in the DMs or showing up for their content, just generally being a good professional friend, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes a long way. And it's probably no different to building a podcast. It makes sense. We talked about this earlier. You've got your guest Mark Mitri, which is why I mentioned him earlier. It makes sense to have people where they have some element of influence out there, and that helps. I really want to try and avoid using the word leverage, but there it is. You kind of leverage them to move up another level. And I think that's if ever there's a formula for a podcast, then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Another thing about LinkedIn, because at the beginning of the year, I told myself, I'm going to post every single day. I'm going to make sure that it's, quality stuff that people can talk about, and I'm going to see where it takes me.
Okay.
And there are two things that I realized. One, it's very hard to post every single day, especially things of value. Like some days you just don't want to go on social media, for me anyway, right? So what is your advice for everyone listening who may not even have the time to post every day? What do you tell them?
Gosh, so many wonderful things I can tell. There's so much good news when someone asked that. I was asked the same question earlier today, so I'm happy to answer this. Firstly, it doesn't matter. The world keeps turning. I know someone who's a massive influence online on LinkedIn, and she hasn't posted in a month. Doesn't matter. Everyone's still there. But if you are consistent, then you do stay on radars. That's the thing. And people are like, oh, I see you all over LinkedIn all the time. It's like, no, you just keep looking at my content, which is why it keeps feeding it to you. That's all it is. And people don't see that. They're like, oh, you haven't posted recently. I have. You've just not been engaging in it. That's all it is. It's related to how much they engage. But there are a couple of things you can do. So I don't have any time at all to muck about building content every day. I will not have time for that. I have other things I have to do. And content forms a thin veneer on top of all the actual being a practitioner I have, much like you. It's not just posting content. That's a full-time job. So I create pillar content, which is probably what you're doing with your podcast. Every Monday, I invest an hour in the live Q&A show, which my team then breaks down. If you don't have a team, you can do this yourself, or you can outsource it to Fiverr. It costs you nothing to do, really. But my team will take the live stream. They will find 2 clips, and that becomes videos. It then gets uploaded. It's already on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as LinkedIn, but it gets uploaded as an IGTV episode. It will be audiogrammed. There's a guy who's just been brought in now who is making Instagram carousels from quotes that the team have found from that week's content on the Monday. So like all of that week's content comes from that live stream, mostly because I don't have time to stroll about talking into a camera phone. So I just don't have time for it. And it's not because I'm kind of suggesting it's not worth much. It's just genuinely delivering on cut for clients means you can't do it too much. In addition, I will, of course, produce my own content as well. But one thing that's also overlooked is that content is dead within a few days. Like it's just in the graveyard. It doesn't go anywhere. No one's looking at it. It's no more views. And if you look at even a viral post after like a week, unless it's crazy viral, after a week, it's like, so no one looks at it anymore. And so what I do is I will go back 4 to 6 to 8 or whatever months to a great bit of content that's literally just sitting there and nothing's looking at it, and copy and paste it. So I was on the vacation last week. I pre-recorded the Q&A because I knew there'd be no reception when I was right. And then I did only 2 other posts. So I only posted 3 times. I think it was last week, 3 or 4 times. And the other posts were reposts. Last night's post, which is done really well, was posted 5 months ago and 8 months ago, because it's really good content and everyone loved it then. But also since 5 months ago, there's a bunch of new followers. And in fact, the old followers possibly didn't see it that time around. So I would say, if you haven't got much to post that week, you can always post something based on something you've done in the past, but also don't overthink it. Like people are showing up for conversation starters against your opinion as a thought leader. And in that one sentence is everything you need. Okay, conversation starters against your opinion as a thought leader. So it means don't just share someone else's post and don't write anything. Give your 2 cents against a topic that's related to the ecosystem within which you have a service that you want people to pay you for. So I talk about sales and engagement and LinkedIn because that's what I want people to pay me for. And it maps to then them seeing my profile and buying into whatever product there is. But I don't deviate too much from that. There's no pictures with, cats playing guitars, which may have done really well. Or, I saw one the other day with loads of little ducklings walking along and then one falling over because, it's hard to walk along a pavement if you're a duckling. And it's like, well, that's cute. And look at your 300,000 views. But like everyone's confused. They enjoyed the video, but no one's going to buy anything. So keep it tight, give it a pure signal. You can post a couple of lines of text. Just what are you thinking of that day? And the third thing I'd say as well is if you're finding it's tough to do during the week, just batch your content. Spend 1 hour because what happens is after 20 minutes or so, if you look at the science of it, what's the book? There's a book called Flow by a guy whose name I cannot possibly pronounce. It's really long. Mikhail something. After 20 minutes of working on something, you really get into flow. So if you can push through 20 minutes of being creative and writing stuff and spend 1 hour, you can write 3 bits of content on a Monday morning and you're done. Or do it on a Sunday and you're done. Or if you're in the zone of recording a video, record 3. And if you're worried about wearing the same t-shirt, so put a jumper on halfway through. It doesn't matter too much. And no one cares. But they're there for your opinion, though. So batching is intelligent. The pillar content and reposting, not mad amounts and not like stuff from last week, but things from a few months ago because everyone's forgotten about it. So that's what I deploy. And I would say there are very few people at the very top who don't repost stuff because no one has the time to make new things every day.
Yeah. And I think part of that, because you said reposting, is making sure that when you are working on the content, that it could be used for evergreen content and last longer than just, what's happening today or last week or something.
So I always
reuse it.
But it's getting easier now, but I always checked in the past, like I'd scrub to the end of the video. Because if it ended with like use the link in the comments to sign up to Entrepreneur Business Live LA, I was like, oh man, I can't use it. I'd have to like download it and cut the end off and stuff. So, so you're right. It needs to be, try and make stuff that's evergreen. It is a really good idea because you will use it again. And if it did really well, why wouldn't you want to post it again? It makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that I think I have an issue with on LinkedIn, and I've seen other people mention it too, is just being myself, like showing the real me.
Being authentic.
Yeah, being authentic. I was trying to avoid using that word, but yes.
I know it's one of the worst words because it's a good word and we should be authentic, but it's overused.
It's overused to the point where I don't think people understand what that means anymore.
Yeah.
And
like personal branding. It's just like, I do personal branding, but we don't know what it means.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you, in terms of, I guess, personal branding or being authentic, first, how much does that play a role into your success on LinkedIn? And two, if somebody is shy like me to be myself on LinkedIn, how can I overcome that?
Yes. So because you are winning instantly with hundreds of millions of people on there, it means that no matter how absurdly dull you are, for some, you're the greatest thing ever. So some people out there, Laura, will think you're interesting. And so you just got to
Oh, thank you.
just bear that in mind.
Just some. Okay, perfect.
but seriously, the mistake people make is to try and be someone different because that's not sustainable. And one of the most powerful tools is consistency. I am an authority on consistency because I do some things and people fall by the wayside after a while. They can't keep it up. But if I do the same thing for a very long time and involve it and so on, like my live streams, you become known. And the thing that the consistencies help me with the most is practically just showing up, like no frills, no fluff, just here's a really great bit of value on a particular thing you can deploy immediately in your business, a tweak, one of those you never knew this, but here's a hack you might want to try things that makes a few people at least say, oh my God, I didn't realize that, or wow, I never looked at it that way. Just doing that and not overthinking how I deliver it. I mean, you don't want to have like heaps of laundry in the background. You want to look reasonably clean and like set, you know, like there's a guy I know who like doesn't wear a shirt and stuff like that. You know, come on, it's, you know, you want to, like, in his LinkedIn profile, he's just there like this, with like poorly lit, with like his chest hair. I'm like, what? Doesn't really make sense. So
Maybe it works for him.
Maybe it works for him, and we're real, like post authentic is to get your chest hair out. So we have to try that. I hope you don't have any, but I do think that there's a lot of value in just simply sharing techniques and things, or tips and hacks. That kind of how-to approach is a really good start point, because before worrying about having to entertain people, you're being useful. And if you're useful against the thing you want people to pay you for consistently, you may feel that that's boring, but what happens is you get people starting to kind of orbit around you and show up for you again and again. And importantly, they start seeing you for being the expert you are in that thing. Because it's crazy the number of, inverted commas, influencers or people with influence on LinkedIn who you follow and you watch their stuff and they get huge amounts of traction. You're like, I have no idea what they do for a living. You know, it doesn't make sense. They show up, they share lots of video, but like, but what do you actually do? Like, how do you make rent, kind of thing? And it's interesting because there's no clarity. So consistency against this pure signal about talking about this ecosystem within which you inhabit is really powerful. And that's very simply done. You don't have to dress it up. Sure, you can evolve, and over time it makes sense to have a decent hook at the start. If you did video, certainly need that kind of pattern interrupt or hook in that first line of your copy, and a call to action. Even if at the end of the text in your post, the call to action is, you know, do you agree with this, or what's your opinion on this, to stimulate conversation. Those basics are things you can pick up fairly quickly, and just again by being consistent, but remembering that you should be deploying the majority of your time in finding people and going and getting your audience and engaging with them, because then they will see you, then they will show up, then they will start commenting on the content. Whenever people have problems with engagement, it's almost never the content. It's almost always their lack of distribution, because people don't care about them enough at this point, you know. So that's where you need to focus.
Is what you just mentioned what you call the 3 C's of LinkedIn?
The 3 C's are part of the basics of LinkedIn course. Glad you mentioned it, Laura. Thanks. So the 3 C's start with content, and it's in order of importance. So I'm not devaluing content, but I'm just placing it in third place. It's still important, okay? Because some people get triggered and say, no, content's really important. I concur. It is important, but it's third place. So content that's quality and starts conversations. If you look at all the people that are very successful, invariably they don't share other people's stuff, because the algorithm throttles traffic to things that share. It rewards you starting native posts, okay? So your own post. So content that's quality that stimulates conversation. The second C is connections and connection building. So you should be connecting with 2 types of people. One is, sure, the people who may buy your product, or those in their ecosystem who could influence that decision. That's actually the smallest portion. The larger portion is the peers and the network and the people who would show up for your content, and those that help distribute it. Seth Godin calls them the sneezers. And so these are the people who are like, they will viralize. It's so topical. They will viralize, if you like, the content, because they're the ones with 80, 100, 600,000 followers. And they're like, oh, Richard's posted, oh, I love your stuff, Richard. Oh, that's really cool. That's a really good point. You're such a legend in sales. And they post stuff like, they write stuff like that. And then LinkedIn feeds more people to it because big hitters are showing up. And whether you like it or not, those people, when courted, will, if they show up, will help elevate the post. And so, you know, there's no nobility. I want to make this clear for the record. There's no nobility in having wonderful content and refusing to use any tags or anything to distribute it, because, you know, well, like, it's good, it should be good enough on its own, but that's just not how it works. It's just absurd. So it makes sense to distribute it properly, and that's where your time should be spent. So that's the community side, and that's the biggest part, is getting down. Like the way I've described it on the course is, you get down from your throne and you actually go out and get the audience yourself. And it starts with you on other people's content, philanthropically writing valuable content, comments to them, and and getting them to say, oh, thank you, that's really nice of you to show up to my content. And you do that a few times, you start becoming familiar, then they will check you out through curiosity, and there's some sense of reciprocity there. So what I would do is regularly, so every day, show up, check out people you find valuable, who are heavy hitters as well, and become familiar by showing up on their content, not becoming familiar through trying to get them to show up on yours by tagging them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
No one wants to jump into a piece of content when they get tagged on it all the time if there's no relationship prior to it, which is why Jeff Weiner is a really bad idea for someone to tag, because he's not going to see it, because you're not connected to Jeff. It might work once every 1,000 posts, but it probably won't. So connect to people who see value in what you're doing, and then tag them meaningfully. But remember, the relationships are what drive this. So those 3 C's really matter: content, connections, and community.
Okay. Love that. Yeah, I was like, 3 C's. I don't know what they are. How much time do you spend on LinkedIn per day or per week?
It's a good question. Actually, very little amount of time. I would say cumulatively about an hour in a day. That's it.
Oh,
and people think
that's
like,
good.
I'm on there all the time. I'm actually not. I'm on there to post. I'm on there to check in and like respond to some of the comments. I do my best to get through them, and often I can't, and people are cool with it. It's okay. But then I'm on there also like momentarily for a couple of clients where I'm helping with their content. I'll check in and work with that. But then probably the rest of the hour is spent showing up in comments either on my posts or most likely on other people's.
And you outsource the creation of the content.
I do, yes. Originally I didn't. So, but I always write the copy.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
It needs to be my flavor, and so I write it with my kind of vibe, you know. And
it has to be authentic.
My little English charm, exactly right. Otherwise, everyone will be like, "Hang on, you don't say y'all in London. What's going on?" So, which is obviously how all American copywriters write. So, it would be a giveaway, wouldn't it?
So let's say I'm building my brand, being authentic, doing my thing on LinkedIn. What KPIs, what metrics should I be looking for to signify that I am growing and I'm getting to a place where, okay, this is going to be a reliable sales funnel for me and my brand?
That's a great question. You should never, ever look at your following ever. Okay. It doesn't matter. Don't be comparative with others as well. There's plenty of people who've got the same following as me who are crushing it. That's because they always start every post with, my tears are in my eyes as I write this, or this is the hardest post, all the emotional stuff. And you're like, well, you're going to do fine with your visibility. But, it's that kind of stuff they'll do well in. And then there's people who do terribly, who got 3 times or 10 times their following. So don't be comparative at all. The KPIs should start, if you look at the 3 C's, the content, try and do something each day. If you're interested in what you can get away with as a minimum, then it shouldn't be indefinitely getting away with it. It's like for 1 week, if you're having a nightmare, then you could post 3 times in a week. But you need to show up a bit more, otherwise you're falling off people's radar. Once a week's kind of pointless if you're trying to grow. And some people may find an exception, but that's typically not the case. In terms of connections, I would suggest you do apply a KPI like 3 to 5 people per day that you connect with that are well researched, who has, and there'll be maybe if it's 5 people, and everyone does have time for this. Okay. I'm homeschooling 2 days a week and stuff like that. So I have time, other people have time. And so if you have even if it's just 5 a day, 2 people potentially could buy or relevant to the space within which you operate, and the other 3 are maybe more influence based or network creators. And I can't overstate the importance of being close with them. And so start DM conversations with them. None of the it hurts to even say it out loud, but none of the messages like, I wanted to connect with like-minded individuals, or I hoped to maybe have you in my network. LinkedIn suggested you, as if to say I'm being forced or coerced into a connection request. It's far more effective to dare to do this revolutionary new technique of spending 7 seconds on their profile and actually read the thing and then comment on that in a connection note instead. So connect meaningfully, basically. Hey, I saw your post. It's really clever. I like how you said this thing. which suggests I'd actually read the thing. And so it's just a good idea to do that and just show up for them that way. Having those each day, like 3 a day is nothing, but that's 90 a month. That's over 1,000 a year, and you have time for it. And like, it's very little things that in your business day would supersede, like when your tutor told you in 2012 to build a LinkedIn profile. It's good advice in hindsight. Very few things that will supersede building a network that can help you with converting. You talked about funnel as well in terms of community building, and what's essentially is that it kind of is important to get the distribution, but your content should be done in a way where possibly once a week you have something a bit more meaningful in terms of a post with a call to action that is designed to get people to kind of lift their hand up and say, here's an area that I actually am struggling with or might need help with or is interesting to me, that is aligned with where you can operate. And the thing right now, we're obviously recording this late, like mid-late 2020, but the thing right now is polls. They are gold for leads. Because if you write a poll with 3 options and a 4th being other, add whatever, but 3 options of, things that you find difficult in the world of sales, for instance, and you get 400 people vote because they're giving loads of bandwidth to polls, of course, then you've got 150 people saying, I have a problem with converting leads on LinkedIn. Well, you've now got a list of leads and you can legitimately send them a direct message saying, hi, Laura, thanks so much for voting on the poll. How you doing? I'm good, thanks. What made you click on that voting option out of interest? And like, oh, it's because woe is me. I have no money. I cannot convert anyone. And then you've got a conversation that's actually a bit more authentically based on them saying, I've got a bit of a problem with something. So you can't miss with lead gen. But if you're just waiting, as the myth is peddled at the moment, if you're just waiting for people to come to you and bang over some DM saying, hey, can I buy your product, please? Then that's a bit patchy, and that's not really a good way of running a business unless you're a mega influencer with 300,000 active followers, which we're not yet for most of us.
Yeah. I feel like I can ask you so many questions about LinkedIn because I'm always on the platform, and some days I just don't feel like posting and engaging with other people. Sometimes I just want to scroll through, and that's okay too, but we have to remember that we're not going to grow our audience. We're not going to get the results we want if that's what we're doing that day.
I would say if you are really not feeling it and a repost isn't going to happen and you're going to spend 10 minutes, find content of interesting people and write a meaningful comment with the 3 key elements. So 1 will be that you tag them so they get the notification you've written something. 2, that you've written a meaningful point about their content, and 3, that you've stimulated a response from them, so maybe ask a question as well. A comment like that really brings them to it, shows that you've been bothered to read properly, and makes them want to engage with you. That's a really good use of your time. If you did that 3 times a day, that's a good alternative to not having time to do a post, but a lot of the time these are excuses.
Yeah, I think we might have to do another interview to get more of your insight and see where you're at in the next 6 months or something. Because now
that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Like I'm going to apply everything you told me, and then in 6 months we see what happened. We can do that.
That'd be amazing. Because think of all the things you would have done by then. You would have done the course, you would have watched all of the live streams and applied everything I've suggested in this episode. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going to be in 6 months.
It's being recorded. It's great. Okay. You're now accountable to it. I'll be checking up. No, I've really enjoyed it. I would love to come back again. Thank you very much. And this is an awesome podcast. So I wish you the best for it.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and being here with us today.
You're very welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.